Okay, so I'm really pleased to be joined today by Michaela, who's I've known for many, many years. Has been a client of mine, and there's certain things we're going to talk about I find absolutely fascinating. So she's going to tell us a lot about those. So first of all, hi, how are you doing?
Hi David, I'm good, thanks. Thanks for inviting me to join you today. So quite exciting. Yeah, enjoying life in lockdown. So doing
Good. So really intrigued to find out in terms of what you've done to manage your self-development and your career year to date, and what you've learned along the way, not just in the working environment, but one of your other great passions that you're going to tell us about as well. And then I'm really interested about how you feel that you're going to continue that going into the future, which I think is always important, because I say to a lot of people, yeah, what we've done in the past sometimes is great, but sometimes we've now got to start to think, okay, but what can I add value and demonstrate in the future, which can be quite a bit of a challenge. So if you wouldn't mind just starting us off with a bit of an overview of your career so far.
Yeah, sure. So I'm head of customer service and distribution and HR at Wackle Europe. So it's an intimate apparel company. So we design and manufacture and distribute lingerie and swimwear. And I've been with that business for just over 15 years, so an awfully long time. And before that, I was customer service manager for Sara Lee branded apparel, so still in the intimates world, so brands like Gossard and Burley and Shock Absorber. So I've been in intimate apparel for pretty much all my working life. And kind of around 2013, I also started teaching yoga, which is obviously what you were talking about when you said one of my other great passions. So I also teach yoga part-time as well.
Yeah, wonderful. Okay. So what does self-development mean to you?
I was having a good think about that question. I think what springs to mind when you think about the working world is you think about going on a course to learn how to maybe get an operational skill or come away. I've done my course and now I know how to do X. And I think for me, when I'm thinking more broadly about developing myself through my life, it means exactly what it says. So self-development is really development of the self. So exploring ways in which I can be a better version of myself, and that's not necessarily related directly to a skill set that I might think I've been on a course and now I can do my job better because I've learned how to do this thing. But I think if I develop my whole self, and that, you know, naturally a better version of my whole self means that will spill over into my working life, and I would hope make me a better leader. So that's really what I think of in terms of self-development, is developing my whole self to be a better version of what I am.
Yeah, wonderful. And I think you're absolutely right. You know, sometimes, you know, we do have this vision that we have to go on a training course to learn, but it's learning from life experiences and taking time to reflect on those that is quite often, you know, the best way of learning.
For me,
yeah.
For sure.
So what do you wish you'd known at the start of your career? We could turn the clock back.
This is a real biggie for me, and it probably underpins everything that I think about in terms of self-development, is that the person you are at home and the person you are at work are the same person, and you don't need to put a mask on. When you set foot over that office doorstep, you don't need to be wearing a mask that turns you into a different version of yourself. And I've spent a long time doing that. You know, for many years I was a different person at home or in my yoga career to in my life as I stepped over the doorstep of my office job. And it was a massive revelation to me when I you know, one day when I just thought, why am I doing this? Why is it like this? And that's what I wish I'd have known, you know, years and years ago, and it would have made my whole working life probably less stressful and more fun, I think.
Yeah, and it's, I mean, that's just so true. When we do profiling tools in different organizations, I have to say to people, you know, answer it as you, or I have to say to them, answer it as you are at work. And if they're sort of, you know, quite a good fun loving group, I sometimes think, no, this is the wrong audience. And they say, yeah, but this is the way we are at work. When we're having fun and we're out of work, we are different. And I agree with you, it's a bit of a shame. And yeah, sometimes we've just got to be ourselves with responsibility, haven't we?
Well, I think, you know, we're just human beings, and work is an interaction between two human beings, and you know, the kind of aspect of being human doesn't change, and the way that I interact with my friends should be no different to the way I interact with anybody in a business life, because it's just about being a good human and acting and behaving like a kind of normal human being. And sometimes I feel like we forget that at work, and we think we have to be this kind of robot, authoritarian, you know, kind of mask-like persona, and you know, found that really didn't work for me in the end.
So you're saying to people, just be yourself?
Absolutely, just be yourself. Why are you a different person? You're just having a human interaction. Whatever your interaction is in business, it's just human to human interaction.
Yeah. So what are you doing in terms of your learning at the moment to keep yourself developing and learning?
I read and explore all the time. So again, not necessarily formal training courses. Of course, I do some of that too. But in terms of just self-development, so you know, yoga is a big part of my life, and I read a lot of classic yoga textbooks to really take some of that quite ancient learning and see what I can do with that, and kind of explore that. And you know, it's that exploring the idea of the self. What is the self, and how can I use that to help lead people through a transformation themselves? So teaching yoga is leading. It's leading a group of people through helping them to transform themselves. That's essentially why people come to yoga generally. And it's no different to leading a team in a business, or you know, in an organization. You are helping people to transform themselves. So I like to kind of explore those classic texts and those ideas of self, and then I like to do kind of lots of retreats or practice or courses that really help me to just deepen that understanding and explore that quite ancient practice and see how it's relevant to today and to my life and to, you know, the job that I do and my personal life as well. So, and then I guess aside from that, I spend a lot of time talking with, you know, friends, peer group. I've got a lot of very successful friends, you know, girlfriends in the business world, and we spend a lot of time talking about careers and other businesses and their experiences. And I like to learn from, you know, what's going on in another organization. There's always really something, I think, that you can take from other people. Either, oh, that sounds like a great way of doing things, or absolutely no, that's not a great way of doing things from what you've said. So you can learn from it either way. It's either, you know, you learn what not to do, or you learn what could be better. So yeah.
And do you feel the business world could learn lots more from yoga?
Of course.
If it opens its mind to...
Absolutely. You know, like I said, it's leading a group of people through transformation, and that is, you know, we're often, I guess, going through cultural change or change management in the business world. And you know, if you've ever seen anybody on a yoga mat who comes for the first time, who's very worried about the way they look or their body, or that they won't be able to do it, or they're not bent enough, or they're going to look stupid, or someone's going to laugh at them, and they've taken that massively brave decision to step on that mat. And my job as the yoga teacher is to take them through that journey, and the absolute joy on someone's face when they realize they can do something that perhaps they were scared of, or they thought they could never do, or they realize that it's you know, no one's going to laugh at them, and no one's going to make fun of them, and actually no one's really looking at them, because everyone's involved with their own practice and development, you know, and that's a revelation for some people. And to see that gradual burgeoning of confidence and happiness from people, and I think, you know, that's, if we could manage our teams like that in the business environment, I think, you know, it would be a much happier place, I think, in some organizations for people, for sure.
Yeah, no, I think that's very valid. I mean, I would argue, well, I would certainly say that sort of 90% of all coaching conversations I've had with people, no matter where they are in a business, we always normally end up talking about self-esteem and confidence.
Absolutely.
Or imposter syndrome, as we like to call it now.
Yeah.
And I always feel that's, yeah, going back to what you said, you know, can't we just be ourselves and you know, feel good about, you know, coming and contributing, instead of worrying about what other people think all the time.
Well, it's always about, I like to look at what people can do, not what they can't do. So I don't really have, I mean, I certainly, you know, in a yoga world, as a yoga teacher, I would never have limiting conversations with people. So we won't focus on, you know, if you can't do a handstand, well, that's okay. Maybe you can do a downward facing dog, and if you can't do that, maybe you can go on all fours, and if you can't, you know, that there'll always be something. So I focus on things that people can do, and I think it's no different in the business world. If with your teams, focus on what people can do. The reason we have a team is because we all have a different strength, we all have something to bring. And so if we could focus on the thing that each person can do rather than worrying about all the things they can't do, you know, I think it makes for a much more transformational environment for people.
Yeah, brilliant. So what's the best piece of advice you've been given in your career?
Definitely, it doesn't always have to be about the task.
Yeah.
So you know, historically I've been a very task focused person in the business world, so it's all about getting it done. And I think, you know, sometimes it's not about the solution, it's about how we arrived at the solution, you know. And in the yoga world, I would say, listen, the class isn't about touching your toes, it's about what you learn on the way down. So it's the way that we arrive at the solution that can give you the most important piece of learning, or I guess the most bit of it's the best way you can feel confidence, is to work together on that solution. So think about what you're learning on the way down rather than getting to the end.
Yeah, I love that phrase. Yeah, you've used that phrase before, and I've sort of just thought, well, yeah, that's great, you must write that down. And it is, yeah, sometimes about, yeah, I mean, I'm dreadful for this. I'm always on the go, and, you know, going here, going there, and sometimes, yeah, I forget to enjoy the journey on the way.
Absolutely, yeah, it is. It's about the journey. It's not really about getting there. It's about what you do on the way, and you can learn so much from others, you know, working in groups in terms of business. Rather than focusing purely on the solution, let's focus on how we get there, because I think that there's a tendency sometimes, if you've got people who are not so outspoken in a group, then if task gets in the way, someone comes up with an idea, it's, you know, right, we haven't got time, let's just do that. We've got an idea, let's just do it. And the people who are less vociferous or less good at speaking up for themselves kind of think, oh, okay, right, so we've got a solution, all right, I'll just be quiet because we know what we're going to you know, we'll just do it. And it doesn't give an opportunity to hear what might be some absolutely fantastic ideas from others, because everyone's so focused on the task that we don't have time to listen to what other people who might take longer, might be more considered, might have a different thought process to those who pop up with the answer straight away. And I think you lose a lot like that.
Yeah, very true. I like that. So thinking about your learning and the knowledge you've been gaining, how do you make sure that you apply it all?
I think, I mean, you know, following on from what I was just talking about in terms of in a group with people who have different ways of thinking, arrive at solutions in different ways, you know, I've learned definitely over the last couple of years that I definitely spend more time listening. So rather than being the first person to speak or the person who's trying to guide the ideas or shape the room, I spend a lot more time listening, and I tend to think very carefully about what I'm going to say or what I have to say. And if it doesn't add anything useful, it doesn't contribute, doesn't make somebody feel good or involved, then I don't say it. So, you know, I spend probably a lot more time listening now than I do speaking, for sure. A lot more considered about what I have to say, so that I can make sure everybody feels involved, everybody has a chance to speak, everybody's ideas can be heard and discussed. And you know, I think you definitely, you get a lot more from people, and you probably arrive at ultimately a better solution for whatever it was you were trying to fix in the first place. So yeah, for sure. And you know, I ask peers and colleagues now a lot more for feedback. So, and I think I've hopefully made it clear to people that I will accept it in the way that they intended to give it to me. So I won't be cross, I won't be fed up, I won't fly off the handle, I won't be angry. I'd be happy to hear the feedback, whatever it is, about the way I might have performed or behaved or said something. And I ask for that feedback, and I listen to it, and I try and modify and moderate behaviour accordingly where necessary.
I think that's so important. You know, often when I run management programs, I don't actually like the word management. I much prefer the word facilitation.
Yeah.
And that's Latin for making things easier, or easier for people to be successful. And I think that's the approach you take nicely.
Yeah, for sure, much more now.
Yeah, which is nice. So anything you'd have done differently?
Yeah, it goes back to what I was saying about not wearing the mask. So I think I would have relaxed sooner, you know, for sure. And I mean my style and my attitude. So, you know, I spent a lot of years thinking I had to behave and perform in a certain way to be taken seriously and to have a position of leadership. And I, you know, a couple of years ago, I just realised that I wasn't behaving authentically. I wasn't being my true self, and it was starting to make me feel very stressed. I think teams respond better to a leader that they find is authentic, that they trust, that they believe. You know, if you're being your authentic self, then people trust what you have to say. And I think, you know, for sure, as a yoga teacher, if you're not being your authentic self, people see through it straight away. If you're parroting, you know, the voice of another teacher, someone who says things that you quite like and has a tone of voice that you like, and you copy that, and it's not yourself, people get it. People know that straight away. If you're the most authentic self you can be, then people take what you have to say, and maybe it's not for them or it is for them, but they will at least accept that you have spoken authentically. And I think, you know, for me, I was quite stressed by realizing that I was this different person at work and at home, and I wasn't being my authentic self. So if I could have relaxed that mask and realized that would be okay a bit sooner, then I think it would have been, you know, more fun, less stressful, and ultimately I might have been a better leader more quickly, I think, sooner.
Okay. Yeah. And do you feel that your yoga has helped you make that transition?
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. You know, I think it helps you discover a lot about yourself. Like, I have this theory that we're all messed up by something, and you have, you know, and you have to find out what it is. And once you found out what it is, doesn't necessarily mean it goes away, but it means you can start learning how to deal with it. And, you know, I know from lots of studying and meditation practices and things that I have done for my self-development, I know what messed me up, and I saw exactly how that was leaking over into me in my business life as well. And I could suddenly recognize why I was behaving in certain ways in certain environments, and what I was really ultimately afraid of, and I've been able to deal with that, I think, now. So yeah, for sure, I wouldn't have been able to make that journey without my yoga practice, for sure.
Yeah. And I think that's so important in so many other activities outside of work, you know, be it sport, be it music, you know, be it the arts, you know, the yoga, you know, the theatre, how it gives people the opportunity to sort of, be themselves, find themselves, and how they can then apply that into the working world.
I mean, that means you're being your most authentic self, and that absolutely carries over, for sure, and ultimately makes you a better leader, for sure.
Yeah. No, I really like that. So it wasn't being forced to watch loads of cricket and do the scoring when you were younger then?
No, but you know, I love that. I'll always love a bit of cricket and a bit of cricket scoring. Yeah, for sure. But yeah, no, that didn't drive me to yoga.
Yeah, there's nothing else to do for 5 days, so I've got to go and find something else to do, something worthwhile doing. Okay, so what have you enjoyed most?
Yeah, in my business life, you know, the team that I built there at Wacol, I'm really proud of them. I'm super proud of the whole team. Some great people, really strong skill sets there, multi-skilled team, and we have built you know, some service level agreements with our partners, our customers, that I know is still industry leading. So I know that other you know, our competitors can't match the service that I'm delivering, and you know, the whole team are proud of that, and they totally engage with that, and they are you know, basically champions of that service and what we do, and they're proud of the job that they do. And I think, you know, I think I built that service 13 years ago, and as I say, I think it's still industry leading. So yeah.
And the way some of your people have developed has been amazing over those years as well.
Yeah, so you've worked with a lot of them for over a period of time.
Yeah, so and you really have seen, you know, you've seen them grow, and they've just become themselves, which is what you've been talking about.
Yeah, it's what I encourage, you know, is everybody to have that little spark of something different, and that brought together makes a fantastic team.
So what advice would you give people coming into the working environment now then, and looking to build their careers and develop themselves?
I am a massive advocate of being vulnerable. So I would say it's okay to be vulnerable, to be a human being. You know, you don't have to know everything. No one expects you to be perfect at what you do, and I say, for sure, admit it when you don't. If you make a mistake, own it. Just say, don't hide it. Ask for help when you need it. And you know, lots of people see that as being weak, and I think it absolutely isn't. It's an expression of self, and certainly, you know, 2.5 years ago, when I just felt that I could no longer be the person I was being in a kind of peer group environment. It was so stressful, and I took the massive step of, you know, I approached my CEO and said, look, I can't be like this anymore, and I really need some help. And I didn't know, I felt like maybe, is it going to be perceived as me just being weak, asking for help? But, you know, it absolutely wasn't. It was the best thing that I could have done. And I think it's that, you know, my absolute biggest piece of advice is embrace that vulnerability, be yourself, be okay with it, because again, that's what makes you that authentic voice.
Yeah.
If you open up and say, I'm scared, or I can't do it, or I don't know, or I need some help, or I'm not quite sure how to do that, you know, I think it's much better than keeping it zipped and hoping for the best, really.
Yeah. And is that sort of, you know, one of your key challenges you've overcome when, you know, perhaps as an organisation where you changed culture, changed owner?
Yeah, for sure. That's when we started our period of cultural change, around halfway through 2017, probably 2018. And, you know, as part of the leadership team, there was a need to just work differently, to define how did we want our business to look in 10 years' time? How are we going to go on this journey? And it was, you know, anyone that's done cultural change will know it's just a massive undertaking, and it's kind of, where do you start? And, you know, it highlighted really that I was finding it too difficult to be this version of myself that I had been, that you know, really served me okay for the past 10 years or so. I mean, got me to where I was. But recognizing that in a new world, or as the cultural change program was taking place, and we needed to shape and define what the business was going to look like, it wasn't going to work for me anymore. And I knew it was too stressful for me, and it was too stressful for others. And you know, I knew that I was making it uncomfortable for other people as well. And you know, one of my biggest little personal fears that drives behavior sometimes is that, you know, I have a big fear of being left out of things, of someone not wanting to be my friend, or whatever. You know, that's a personal hang up, but it definitely carries over. And I realized that I was probably creating the probability of the thing I dreaded most actually occurring, because I was being so difficult to work with, that I was imagining people saying, oh God, not her, please, let's not have her in our group, I don't want to work with her, you know what it's like when she's in our group. And I realized I was probably creating the thing that I feared most, or worried about most, and I knew it couldn't go on. But you know, I took that massive step of just admitting that, not just to myself, and you know, to my CEO, and basically that was the beginning of me opening up to being vulnerable, to accepting that we all have stuff that impacts the way we behave, and I needed help. And that's when I really acknowledged that this home self, or this yoga teacher self, shouldn't be different to the self who steps over the doorstep of that organization. You know, and I was finally able to start addressing that and moderating that behavior, really.
Yeah, brilliant, and thank you for sharing that with us. I really appreciate that. So moving on then, how are you going to continue to develop and future-proof yourself and create that resilience, especially in your organisation that's, you know, perhaps having a bit of a tough time?
Exactly. I think you're right. Resilience is absolutely the key word. And you know, I think yoga teaches us that nothing is permanent. The only thing that's permanent is change, effectively. So we have to be ready. And you know, there are always buzzwords in business like agile and adapt and things like that, but it's, you know, never a truer word spoken, especially now. Businesses that will survive the pandemic and come out the other side in a good place, or a place that enables them to make quick recovery, are those who can adapt and change very quickly. And I think it's inevitable that we have to be ready to adapt at a moment's notice. And the idea of a job for life is gone, for sure. And we have to be open to new ways of working. I mean, you know, I know there are loads of management books out there, and some complicated ones and some simple ones. And there's one that I really love, and it's been around for a while, a long time, but it's called Who Moved My Cheese? Yeah. And if anyone hasn't read that, I absolutely, you'll read it in an hour. It's very short. And it really brings it home to you. You know, if you're reluctant to change your ideas or your ways of working, I think it's very simple. And sometimes when I find myself thinking, oh, I don't want to do that, then I just think, you know, it makes me straight away think, is that my cheese? You know, and I always bring that book to mind, and I use it to remind myself a lot that it might be something that I don't want to do because it feels too difficult, or it feels like a massive big deal to sort it out. But is that my cheese? Because we need to be able, it might be something I didn't want to do 6 months ago, but maybe now we need to work that way. And just to be open to that. So I use that little book to remind myself all the time. And I think it's about just, you know, testing, learning, adjusting all the while. So test and learn, key for me. Yeah,
and it is a classic. It is, I mean, it must have been written quite a few years.
It's been around a long time,
Yeah, but it is just, and also if you can ever watch the video of it, if anyone's watching this or listening to this, if you can ever find the video of it, I don't know if it's on YouTube, it must be somewhere out there, but I used to have the old proper video of it from Video Arts, and it is an absolute classic. And it just gets the message across so well. So brilliant, thank you very much for that. I really appreciate that, and your honesty and opening up and sort of explaining those things. And yeah, I think there's, but as I said to you before, what I love is your connection with your yoga and the business. And as I said, there's so many other areas that, you know, we can bring what we do elsewhere in our lives into business and make us better.
Yeah, it makes you authentic.
Yeah, which is a lovely word, which is, you know, and it's nicely put. So thank you very much for your time. I know we're coming up to the weekend, and so have a lovely weekend. And I really appreciate that, and look forward to speaking to you soon.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for taking time to chat. Bye.